My name is Chip Royce. I'm part of the team with Insyghtful.ai. I'm one of their business advisors. But I am super happy and flattered that we were able to get Mike Bosworth, a tremendous thought leader in the sales space, to join us today. So let's get started, Mike. You know, your signature on your email says that you're an author, a speaker, a sales philosopher. I'd rather have you do the honor. Please tell us a bit about yourself and, your experience in the sales world.
Well, it's long. I'm old, and my prime really. I went into sales first in 1974, and I probably have the distinction of being the only enterprise B2B salesperson that had never been on a sales call before he went on his first sales call as a salesman.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just completely new. I had none of the experienced salespeople there were showing me anything. I was, 28 years old and they were all 35 and former IBM superstars. And, but I ended up going into sales having had the really good fortune of spending over 2 years with my company as a service person, as a person who could either on the help desk for my first year or out in person help them find the missing journal entry or help them find the parts they can't find or
Yeah.
the payment records or all the things that had to do with a fully integrated accounting system. And so my whole deal when they asked me to go into sales, and initially I said no and hell no, because the no was all the clients I was servicing back then. The salesperson had lied to them about at least one of two things. Most common lie was, oh yeah, our product will do that. They tell them lies about, what the product would do,
Mm-hmm.
where they would say yes to something and it wouldn't do it, or they lied to them about how much it was going to cost them each month for the service, where they quote them 1,200 a month, and I inherit the account a year later, and it's $3,000 a month, and I have to, figure out how to make them happy with $3,000 a month instead of 1,200 a month that they thought they were going to pay. So I said no, and they said, well, we'd really like you to try it. And so they gave me an out clause. They said, try it for 6 months. You can keep your techie salary. And if you hate sales after 6 months, you can have your support job back. I said, great. So the only thing I didn't know how to do was I didn't know who I should call and what I should talk about. And they gave me a manufacturer's directory of all of Southern California. And our marketing department had highlighted the 49 perfect fits for our new MRP product. So they basically gave me and said, here, your territory is this geography, but these 49 highlighted companies, that's where you should be telling them about our product. And so the only thing I didn't know how to do was cold call. My boss showed me on one call how to cold call because it wasn't that complicated. I'd go in and I'd say, hi, I'm Mike Bosworth with Xerox Computer Services, and I'd like to speak with your materials manager. And it was always a female back then. She'd pick up the phone, call material control. Odds are no salesman had ever even tried to call on the materials manager before. They get the materials manager on the phone, say, I got this guy with Xerox out in the lobby who wants to talk to our materials manager, and 80% of the time he'd come out. And that's a whole different curiosity story. But he'd come out, and as soon as he'd walk up to me and I'd reach out to shake my hand, I'd see him looking at his watch first. Because I was 28 and he was 48 at least.
Yeah.
And so I think he was immediately writing me off as too young to know anything. And I'd never seen another Xerox Computer Services sales call. I found out later why the onboarding was taking 12 to 15 months for all those IBM superstars back then. But anyway, so now once the materials manager comes out, I confirm his job title. And then I asked, this was all intuitive. Years
Yeah.
later, I learned how to teach it. But the intuitive part was, can I share a story with you about another materials manager less than a mile from here, who in the last 18 months has reduced his inventory from 8 million to 2.7 million? Guess how many no's I got to the offer of that story? Never.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because the odds were very, very high back then that he had a shortage problem. He said, we knew which complex environments would benefit the most from our, better mousetrap. And so at the end of that one, so I tell him the story about that materials manager, where I met him at the Apex meeting, why his job was so hard, because the CFO was mad at him because he had too much inventory, and his boss, the VP of manufacturing, was mad at him because the past due backlog was over almost 30%.
Hmm.
And 18 months ago, when he discovered that Xerox now had enough computing power locally to completely replan his manufacturing plant overnight, and that was completely innovative back then. He volunteered to be our first customer, and this is a true story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he said, I know you don't have any customers, but the value of that would be so great to me that I'd love to be your guinea pig. So he raised his hand, and here we are 18 months later. His inventory was 8 million, now it's 2.7. His past due backlog was 27%, now it's 3%. But what's going on around here? And as soon as I tossed it back to him, after 1 minute, he went from this to, this guy looks too young to know anything, but he sure understands how hard my job is. And it seems like he's really helped one of my peers with the biggest problem I have. So I want to know more. And that's just emotional conclusions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I knew it worked because at the end of that, what's going around here? He said, you want to come in and come and take a look around? He'd immediately offer me a plant tour, just like that. So in 1 minute, he went from this kid's too young to know anything to an offer of a plant tour. That's the power of a story, of a good customer hero story. And all my peers that were IBM superstars, on their first calls, when the materials manager would come out, he'd say, I'm whatever his name, John Doe with Xerox Computer Services. Can I give you a demonstration of our MRP system? Because that's all we taught them how to do, was demo the product. And that's been a problem in the information technology industry forever, and it still is. Virtually all the companies that want to show me their new cool stuff, and I get a lot of calls like that, they want to show me a demo. And as soon as they say that, I shut them down. I don't want to see any demos.
That's
I want to
incredible.
know, I want to know the background of the person who bought your product, what his or her problem was, what their struggle was, why they couldn't solve that problem. And then what about your product gave them the vision that they could, and give me some metrics, inventory reduced, give me some business metrics. I'll get interested in that.
And so you started off in sales for Xerox, no
Yeah.
training. They threw you in with the wolves, expect you to figure it out.
Yeah.
And by this point, you're now a successful author. I mean, we know about
Well, but
solution
back
selling
then,
and
yeah, we'll do that. 5 months after Unquote, and never having even been on a sales call, I'd sold more than anybody in the history of the company had sold in a full year. And that was because I was conversationally competent about a specific pain point of a targeted buyer.
Yeah.
I didn't need to know, I didn't need to memorize a manual like that. I need to know one key guy's pain point, why he has it, and how much
Uh-huh.
better he was at his job with my product.
Yep.
And that little story. So, since salespeople, they hate two things. They hate prospecting, they hate cold calling, and they hate practicing. They don't like practicing.
Yeah.
They're the only highly paid profession I know. I mean, if you look at Steph Curry, he practices. For the older people out there, Larry Bird used to take 300 practice shots before every game. You'd want your dentist or your lawyer or your doctor to have practiced whatever they're doing to you many times. I know I would, but there's something resistant about the DNA of people who go into sales that
Mm-hmm.
they think they can wing it.
Yeah. And has this always been the case? Do you think that it's evolved, or is this just a constant that for some reason, this is just an inherent human thing and it's been going on for 100 years with salespeople?
I think it's the latter, but
Yeah.
AI can help us fix it now.
Okay.
That's what's exciting about these times.
Okay.
Is actually it can help with both things that salespeople hate: the practice and the prospecting. Can I share with you how I would envision AI doing the prospecting now that I was doing manually back in 1974?
Absolutely. Please dive in.
Well, as I told you, they gave me a book that's like a manufacturer's directory with 49 highlighted targeted guys, materials
Hmm.
managers out there. Well, I believe today AI could go find those 49 targeted accounts like that. We could specify what to scrape for number of employees and SIC codes and products and markets and job titles, and it can target them. It's in the manual days we used to call it, we want to find people who should be looking for our product.
Yeah.
It was hard to weed them out, right? Because there's so many. But who should be looking for what we sell? Who's who's got the most to gain if they had what we have?
Well, the thing
And
is, most companies would say, well, everyone would, right?
that's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like the problem with AI now is there's thousands of fantastic AI ideas for
Hmm.
helping enterprises improve their sales productivity. Thousands. And it's too many for all of us. I think what we've got to do is focus.
Yeah. How so?
Well, it seems to me that the longer I study a subject, the simpler it gets for me.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that with all the options, in order to get some payback and some real value out of what AI could clearly do today, just based on demos that I've forced myself to watch now and again, is it can find those people who should be looking for what you sell if you can clearly specify who that person is. What's their job title? Where do they
Hmm.
live? How far do they have to go to work? What problems do they have? But it's got to all be targeted at what your stuff does well. I mean, if we're in sales, we're trying to sell somebody's product. We're not trying to be therapists for the world. And if we can do it right, it's a delightful job and a great profession.
What would you say to companies? So I run into this a lot with my work. And I'm always trying to get sales teams and their executives to feel comfortable that a small group of tightly fit, tightly qualified customers is plenty. Yet there's this fear of missing out. People are like, no, but if we, and the term ICP is a big thing today, right? Ideal customer profile. How
Yeah.
do you respond to that when people say, but I hate to exclude these people. They could be my customer someday?
Well, I think regrettably, I think they're coming from their greed glands caused, caused by Wall Street.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many wonderful companies over the years that were privately held. My first big account, Management Science America, in the mid 80s, they were privately held and they sold $100,000 application programs to IBM mainframes.
Mm-hmm.
And I started working with them, and they were delightful to work for because the CEO and the chairman, it was privately held. And so when they had allowed me to come in as a solo practitioner, I think about 1983 or something, with my methodology of solution selling, which eventually became a best-selling book,
Yeah.
on the very first call, I was able to explain how solution selling in its manual form back then would reduce their onboarding costs and times and make less liars of their salespeople, because it would be getting them to only create visions for things that the product was really capable of. And it went like wildfire. On the first call, I was living in Boston at the time, and they said, "Can you come down and explain solution selling?" And I said, "I'll be happy to, but if we do business, I want you to pick up my trip." And he agreed to that right away. So I went down as a director of training, and once I helped him visualize the power of, let's call solution selling intelligent discovery,
Yeah.
where the discovery process we use creates them wanting and needing things our product does. So it's got to be biased discovery, focused discovery. It can't just be, how are you feeling today? Let's go to lunch and play golf.
Or the way that people try to run discovery today, where they say is, what's in it for me? Do you have budget, Mike? Do you, are you willing to move quickly on my timeline so I can hit my quota?
Now, you just said a magic word, budget. The wonderful thing about privately held companies is if you get high enough, they don't need any budget. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
The budgets are created for below the line managers who they don't want going willy nilly and spending too much. The people in a privately held company who have the power to run a business and choose a new market and choose a new product area and et cetera, those people don't need any budget. They have a meeting, or they have the power to do it themselves, and they do it. That's why I love privately held companies.
So Mike and sorry, Alex in the audience has a question, and this might be a neat sort of segue as we sort of weave around here.
Sure.
Um, but he's asking, can you share how many salespeople you've trained or spoken to in the last decade? But specifically, and I think this comes back to what you were talking about. So how many people, and what are the three most common challenges that you see in the sales processes that are employed, or from a talent perspective, that you've run into?
That's a great question, and I'm happy that he asked it because it's an area I wanted to cover. Um, Way back in 1979, when Neil Rackham was hired by Xerox, he was a behavioral research. He's the guy who wrote Spin Selling, which
Mm-hmm.
was I think it was the best-selling McGraw-Hill business book, at least in the 80s and 90s. my book was second to his, but so I know it. But Xerox hired him because year after year after year after year, 20% of the salespeople were bringing in 80% of the money. And so the reverse is true. 80% of the salespeople were bringing in 20%
Yeah,
of the
the old
money.
Pareto principle. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so they hired Neil Rackham and they said, we only want you to study our top performers. We only want you to study what the top 20% are doing, because we think they're doing it intuitively. We think they're unconscious competence. And we want you to see if you can extract something behaviorally that's teachable to the bottom 80%. It's a great objective. And he came up with spin selling. And today, I will tell you that the primary difference in every company between top 20% performers and bottom 80% performers is their EQ, is their ability to emotionally connect and build trust
Hmm.
before they take their sales process out.
What do you what are the drivers? Why do 80% of the people not have an EQ that works, or what is it about them that is keeping their EQ from evolving to the point they could be great?
EQ is very difficult to develop.
Yeah.
Most of the billionaires that we're watching on CNN and Fox News don't have very good EQ.
Yeah.
Yes, Steve Jobs could do a really good performance on stage, but with his own people, he was a till of the hunt. He was really rough and really disparaging, and
Hmm.
not somebody that you'd want to work with.
Yeah.
And if you look at Larry Ellison, he's not Mr. EQ, and Bill Gates is not Mr. EQ. I mean, and Scott Zuckerberg is not Mr. A lot of these guys are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
They're really, really strong. They have really high IQs and not so high EQs. And the reason I bring it up is enterprise sales, which can be hugely lucrative if you're wired the right way. A lot of enterprise salespeople are geeks. They're engineers,
Okay.
they're finance majors, accounting majors. They've made it through life on their IQ. And when they go into sales, they end up being in the bottom 80%. And it's not that they don't have high character,
Yeah.
but if you're out there as a hunter, now there's hunters and farmers, right?
Sure.
Uh, low EQ people make better farmers. Actually, you would think the reverse is true,
Hmm.
but being a hunter and emotionally connecting with strangers is really the secret sauce of the top 20%.
So would you go recruit intelligent bartenders and turn them into salespeople if that's what you were looking for high EQ?
Boy, if my AI system was programmed to, to make them to do their onboarding and teach them um, how to have a few targeted conversations really, really well.
Yeah.
One of them would be, oh, you're the materials manager. Can I tell you a story about another materials manager less than a mile from here?
Yeah.
And have that story today with AI. The AI could not only give the seller practice telling that story, it could do the video of them telling the story once they get to a certain competence level. We
Hmm.
could almost make it like a video game where they don't, until they get to this level, they don't get to talk to any customers. They don't get to go out and make sales calls until you get consciously competent at having certain conversations. And it's a finite number.
Yeah.
3 or 4 before you put them out there and they're starting to generate value. And if it were my dollars, I'd have the AI system scraping the universe for who are the ideal buyers by job title and responsibility and problems and whatever, who have the most to gain by buying our product.
Yeah.
And let's put together a customer hero story that we can go out and we can offer them the story of one of their peers who's been able to go from A to B. And all they have to do is say yes. Now they, we could get to them with a text or an email, say, would you spend 1 minute watching the video of a story of one of your peers, another CFO, who was able to go from A to B in 7 months?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to say yes,
Yeah.
but most people in the professional world, Chip, have pure curiosity. And boy, when you're out there in a dog eat dog world, you've got to stay current with your peers. And that pure curiosity
Yeah.
is a given in the enterprise world.
Well, what I loved about it too, your peer, because so just to recap for everybody, right? Mike's got this structure. It's called a peer story. And what I love about talking about someone else while preserving the confidentiality, you're
Yeah.
not sharing any trade secrets.
Yeah.
But we, especially in today's world with social media and all the aspects that are going on in the online world, right? We talk about social proof. You've come the closest to putting a logo in front of somebody. You've almost created a testimonial without having that person walk in the room and do so.
You're exactly
And
right.
you're also leaning into the why should I listen to you? Will I get fired if I spend time with you and accidentally buy from you? Right. So you accomplish so much in that 1 minute. It's really a neat discovery slash it's almost a litmus test. Is this worth pursuing in such a short period of time of effort?
You are so in the right path, Chip, with this. And if we think about even more benefit that come out of this, because today, if my AI system is serving me well,
Mm-hmm.
it won't let that customer story go out until it reaches a certain level of conversational competence,
Yeah.
right? And then when it does go out, now the AI system, once the newly hired salesperson gets conversationally competent on their customer hero story, the AI system does a video of that 1 minute story.
Yeah.
And then the AI system can go out and scrape the universe and find the emails and the texts of the people who should be looking at this person's product because they have a certain pain, need, job title, responsibility, something that we know our stuff really helps.
Yeah. So it's interesting you say that. And just a quick disclaimer to everybody here. The Insyghtful.ai team is probably taking furious notes about some of the different feature ideas that we could incorporate into our platform. But just for background, Insightful is conversational intelligence. It's not just a transcript after the call. It's not
Right.
just CRM enrichment, but it's actually saying, so for instance, if I were a salesperson and I were running this Insightful parallel to my call with Mike, and if I'm not listening to him and talking too much, it's going to tell me. It's going to say, hey, you missed some sales cues, or here's an opportunity based on our playbook that you need to make sure you introduce in the call. But I just love how Mike is bringing in, even additional features, additional ideas to what people need to be thinking about, especially if they're not being coached well. And Mike, I noticed you said early in the conversation that you were thrown into the fray. Um,
Yeah.
what the Insightful team sees when we talk to people is that there are a lot of executives who just don't want to be a sales coach, but
They
yet
don't.
they've got people in the fray. So, what's your take on sales coaching and how important is it?
Um, that's another area I'm just getting really excited about the AI potential because sales managers hate coaching and salespeople hate being coached by their sales managers who hate coaching. It's not a fun process.
No,
And
don't waste my time. I love it. Yeah.
yeah, and the beauty of AI is it can give them the practice and
Yeah.
the AI can tell the manager when the seller has now reached conversational competence. And what
Mm-hmm.
are the five targeted conversations that a new hire has? And that's the other nice thing is if we can learn to facilitate conversational competence, then we
Yeah.
can come up with a target list of five conversations that we want our salespeople to be able to have before they get to go out and get in front of a customer. And by the way, one of those story
Yeah.
practices ought to be Chip, when you're at a dinner party and somebody says, Chip, what do you do? Who do you work for? I want everybody in my company, if I'm a CEO, to be able to tell that story at a neighborhood barbecue, at a dinner party in 1 minute or less.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to find new customers. I'm going to find new salespeople. We just want our mission and our goals out there. Everybody, admin people, everybody who work, the people on the loading dock, everybody in the company learns to deliver this company story, and the AI can do it. The
Yeah.
poor manager, can you imagine how tired the managers would get if everybody had to practice that story on them?
Yeah.
They'd hate it.
Oh, they'd hate it. They also don't like being ripped away from the computers to sit
Yeah.
down with people and do coaching.
Well,
Yeah,
but their MBA taught them to be happy on that spreadsheet.
I agree. I agree, and that's why we're trying to backfill that.
Yeah.
So imagine after 5 calls, you're getting a report saying, "Hey, here are the things you're doing well, the things you can improve." Um, and back to your point, future features could be, and I'll even do this for a couple clients. I'll go into ChatGPT in voice mode and load up a prompt and just say your objective is to present an agenda and get the customer to agree, that these are the objectives of the call, and make sure they give assent. Could I ask you to agree to this agenda? Right. That's all they've got to work on, but that's such a crucial skill
Well,
for,
I am concerned though that some of the AI systems, and I'm not pointing any fingers at Boo, but they're more into deal management
Mhm.
than they are at getting their newly onboarded future salespeople conversationally competent first. Because
Okay.
you can't have a deal to manage if you don't have a pipeline, if you can't
Mhm.
go out and tell the story to strangers and get people to say, you want to come in and look around, to get
Yeah.
people, to buy in to whatever customer focus specific customer hero story. And that's what makes it doable. If you just say you have to be conversationally competent in 100 different areas, they're never going to be. But you
Yeah.
start off with the customer hero story, then you start off with the neighborhood dinner party story, then you teach them their own personal story of struggle, because if they do get a new client, the client at some point is going to say, Chip, how'd you end up in sales? Why are you here? All good B2B clients ask the salesperson that story. I want
Yeah.
them to be really good at that story before they go out and start telling it to people.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they even
Well,
have to get a few tattoos removed. I don't know. But
no, I mean, I think those are the realities of it. I think the other interesting reality too is, and I'll just say this from a market perspective. There are, again, the MBAs, that technical perspective. I don't think they appreciate the things that you've honed and written about in terms of, is this a human process? There's a person on the other side.
right.
I like to use the term, we're not entitled to our customers' revenue
No,
just because we showed up, right?
no.
And
Yeah.
so case in point, I think when you're building solutions like Insyghtful, we present it to say, hey, look, we're here to help you, make your pipeline more predictable. We're here to help your people sell. Um, I hate to say it, if we said we're here to build the conversational intelligence of your salesperson, they'll go, but that doesn't enrich the bottom line. So there's
Oh,
something
yeah.
about a step by step process to bring them to, hey, did you know that if we coach and improve people, they're going to sell better? And they're going to go, wow, you're bringing money to the table. My pipeline looks better. How'd you do that? It's about the people. Oh, okay, now I get it, right? Because I'm able to experience the results.
And I want Vu to be better at giving me a specific story about a specific guy with a specific title in a specific company who is struggling with specific things, what he said he needed. And then I want Vu to show me what he gave the guy.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
that's great because it's, sorry, we're talking about the Insightful company in front of our prospective customers, but I can tell you it's really exciting, the customer list and the proof points that people are deploying the app. So what's awesome is we're going to have more of those stories to share with people about what
absolutely.
it's doing to
Yeah.
transform their world.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's ever read Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm,
Hmm.
did you read that one, Chip?
I named my company after
Yeah.
it.
Well, the premise is so many really bright high-tech startups, they create a better mousetrap,
Hmm.
and Insightful's going to face this because Microsoft faced it. And they get that better mousetrap and they go to trade, they get white papers written and they start going to trade shows and doing demos. And what happens at those trade shows is the innovators and early adopter personality types among us all, they see that new technology and they go, son of a gun, I've been waiting for somebody to do that.
Hmm.
Just you can say that with some of the insightful stuff. I've been waiting for somebody to put that together in a way I could use it.
Yeah.
So they buy and they implement. And the first 13% goes like gangbusters, but then they run out of people who were smart enough to create their own buying vision for that new piece of technology. The
Hmm.
rest of the market, they need help knowing why they need it and how they'd use it.
Yeah.
And and so the customer hero story is for the early market. It's for the people who we can target. We can target them by their persona and by their potential problems, but we still have to be able to lead them to the conclusion that they can use this new technology in their job. They're willing to give it a shot. Now they should go to a demo. Once the early market gets a vision, now they should go to a demo. And way back when, Microsoft hired me and my solution selling team because their product, Microsoft Office, which had PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Excel, those three apps, Microsoft Office, and that came out. The, the first 13% out there bought that stuff like it was crazy. The geeks
Hmm.
were going crazy. The MBAs with a technical bent saw those spreadsheets
I was
And
online for a copy of Windows 95. I get that.
yeah, no, they were all over it. But what happened was this Microsoft ran out of people who could individually create their own buying vision for how
Yeah.
they might use Microsoft Excel or whatever, and they bought. But now they run out of people who can create their own buying vision.
Yeah.
Now they hit their early market, and they knew their early market comprised of construction companies and dental offices, for instance, too. So
Yeah.
they hired us to go out and talk to the construction companies by job title and the dental offices, the office manager and stuff like that. And the key to that customer hero story building mission
Yeah.
was to get the happy customers, the existing happy customers, talking about how they use. So we go out and we'd say to a CFO of a construction company, show us how you're using Microsoft Office. And they'd immediately bring out their profitability by job
Yeah.
and their scheduling it. And I mean, they were just all over it, right? And so we're taking notes like crazy and trying to clarify how they describe how they use it. And then the big question, well, Chip, before you had that spreadsheet, how did you calculate your monthly profitability? And they'd all go, oh, it was a nightmare. And now they'd go back and recap the before.
Hmm.
So once you have a before and an after, you can do a great story. And the key about that story is 80% of salespeople out there need that story initially to connect with an initial prospect where it removes here's a salesman and this guy understands how hard my job is, and he's helped one of my peers solve a problem that's still a struggle for me. And that's our mission to put that story together and then to get our salespeople in front of potential prospects out there. But again, we can send them an email or a text now and say, would you spend 1 minute watching the story of another CFO who changed their cash payments from 59 days to 23 days? If you
Hmm.
give them a job title specific, would you spend 1 minute watching the story of one of your peers who went from here to there using our product? They will virtually all say yes, but they don't have to push carriage return. They don't have to say yes, I will. But if they do, this person telling them that 1 minute story on a video is going to be their in-person salesperson.
Yeah.
So if that story works, and at the end of it, they say, yeah, I'll do a 15-minute Zoom call with you. And now the person who comes on to do that 15-minute Zoom call is the same person who already created the customer hero vision. And all that happened without the salesperson having to face rejection. They never had to face rejection, which is why they hate prospecting.
No, makes total sense. Quick thing to the audience. We're going to have some time to take your questions. So please fire them away and we'll do our best to answer them. But as we wrap up, Mike, gosh, you've pretty much given everybody the formula for creating their own customer story and using that. Um, Amongst all your different experience and expertise, is there one or two tips in addition that is worth sharing with people before we wrap up?
Gal, do you have one in mind, Chip? Because I'm all over the place. I'm a sales philosopher, and I go down rabbit holes. So, um,
Well, we've gone into AI. We've talked about we brought it home to the fact that people need EQ. We talked about AI, right?
all
But
right,
what's maybe something try okay, dive in. Go for it.
I got it. The only way the bottom 80% is going to be able to remove the inherent discovery resistance in most B2B prospects. The
Yeah,
discovery resistance comes from previous unpleasant experiences with salespeople,
agreed.
right? And the problem the bottom 80% have, 80% of the people who went through solution selling quit using it within 2 weeks of the workshop. And for years, I misdiagnosed it.
Yeah,
I eventually realized that the ones who quit using it were low EQ, high EQ salespeople. And they went out on a first call and they felt the same discomfort they've had their entire life
yeah.
every time they meet a stranger.
hmm
It's their life story is that
Well, their
inherent,
subconscious is jumping in and just saying, "I'm
right,
uncomfortable. I can't do
I'm
this."
uncomfortable. And
Yeah,
so what they did is they reached into their bag and took out their solution discovery questions prematurely.
as a
And
crutch. Yeah,
after a few minutes, and the reason they went into their bag and took them out is they didn't know how to connect. They didn't know how to build the emotional connection and the initial trust. So they went to their sales process too soon. The buyer said, "Whoa, you don't know me well enough to ask me all those questions." Pushed them
boom, love it.
away.
Yes,
After a couple of weeks of that, they quit using it.
yes.
But the top 20% were smart enough to keep those discovery questions in their pocket and go out there and using their inherent high EQ, they did the emotional connection and started to build the trust first. And then they said, Chip, to keep myself focused, my technical people have given me a list of questions they told me to ask you. Do you care if I use it today? And you say, hell no. And I take it out. And now I can go to my intelligent discovery questions because the discovery resistance is down. And so for the bottom 80%, if they don't start with that customer hero story, none of the rest matters because they don't gain enough connection and trust to be able to go do their job.
And isn't part of building that trust is saying, "Look, I might not be right for you. Just let me know as soon as possible. I would hate to waste your time." Like showing that respect. Is that part of that?
I've never done that in my life.
Okay,
I started with that story, and that story led them to say, "You want to come in and look around?" And then I could follow my discovery model however I wanted to follow it.
got it.
I mean, once they trusted me, now I knew my mission was to get them to want to come out and see my system in action. And so they'd introduce me to all the people in the department, the key people. And I had that same client I told the story about.
hmm
That was my client.
Yeah.
I knew him cold. And you know what he did when I went into sales? He said, Mike, every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, from 10 to noon, I'm going to open up my conference room for the first 20 people you can get in there.
Yeah.
And then my first 5 months in quota, I sold more than anybody in the history of the company using that one story about that one guy. And the following Tuesday, I get them so excited they come out and they get their proof and they bought.
I love it. I love it. And I love how we came full circle to the start.
Yeah.
So that's been great. So Mike, we've got a question. If you don't mind, let me throw it to
Yeah.
you. Um, Somebody asks, and I think it's a great one. It's like, how do we utilize AI but not lose our own authenticity in the sales process? Because AI will tend to suggest and almost tell you to say it this way or do certain things. How do you find balance there?
Well, you'll notice that all of my talk about AI today didn't go down that path
Yeah.
with that question. In other words, I'm visualizing the AI to dramatically reduce the time it takes to onboard new people by getting them conversationally competent and able to connect first before it does anything else.
Hmm.
And so I'm not sure where he wants to go with this question.
I think the person is touching on feeling scripted, or is the AI telling me what to say and therefore I'm becoming detached from myself and all that?
All that interface in my mind. Now
Yeah.
this is you know how many visions of AI usage are out there now?
Yeah.
Millions.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It can do anything you want it to do. It's
Hmm.
does what you want it to do, going to make a measurable impact on how quickly one you can put newly hired salespeople out there having preliminary early competent conversations with certain targeted buyers, with their neighbors telling them what their company does. Just a few where the AI will give the seller the practice and eventually say, you're good enough.
Yeah.
That's what I want the AI to do. And then send an email to my manager and say, this guy's ready to go. Take a look at these. And we're going to record his story and start his prospecting wave next week.
I love it. I love it. There was a follow up question, and I think this comes back to what you're talking about when your history with solution selling and the 2 week drop. But the question was, why do most sales training programs improve knowledge but fail to actually change underlying behaviors?
Because most sales training programs don't take into account EQ. They don't take into
They're
account,
mechanical, right? They're just process, right?
yeah, they don't take into account the intuitive EQ the great salespeople have, because that's their only difference. They don't, they all work the same 40 hours. They all pump out the same number of proposals. They all make the same number of cold calls, but that top 20%, they have that intuitive magic for connecting via EQ. The customer hero story is the EQ crutch for the bottom 80%.
So for people who are like attorneys and consultants and are not even ever really trained salespeople, but they have skills. Are you saying just lean into your EQ and demonstrate not only listen but demonstrate your expertise, and people will naturally want to buy from you if you're the right thing for them?
Absolutely. But if you look at lawyers, you think there isn't a top 20% among lawyers?
Well, that's yeah,
Have you heard the term rainmaker?
exactly, yeah,
If you go on any law firm, the rainmakers have EQ all over the place.
yeah.
And most of those lawyers are high IQ. They're into the legal mumbo jumbo and they love contracts and all that detailed stuff. They would have been MBAs had they not been lawyers, but they're not rainmakers.
Hmm.
And in most law firms, you want to be a partner? You got to be a rainmaker. In most consulting firms, you want to be a partner? You got to be a rainmaker.
Yeah.
And the rainmaker are a talented minority. Most college professors, there's a top 20% and a bottom 80% in any subject. Most school teachers, it's a top 20%, bottom 80%. I'll give you a school teacher example. Do we have time?
We've got 1 more minute.
All right. Growing up and going through the school system I went through, the Catholic school system, I hated history. Names, dates, and places, memorization. But have you seen Hamilton?
Yes.
The play Hamilton?
Mm-hmm.
That's how they ought to teach history. Now, that's going to an extreme of making it a Broadway production. But the best, some kids love history, and there's a
Yeah.
high correlation between how much storytelling does their history teacher do versus how much memorization of names, dates, and places.
Yeah, if they allow you to lecture and storytell versus rote, I would agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So all professions, if you really look at the top people in almost any profession, it's high EQ people.
That's great.
So what I'm doing is I'm bringing in a crutch for the high IQ, low EQ B2B enterprise salespeople who are honorable. They love solving problems, but their customers won't talk about their problems until they feel connected and trust them. And they don't know how to do that initial connection and trust. So there's no deals to manage if the seller doesn't know how to go out and do connection and trust. It's all a priority
Mm-hmm.
of what do you want to work on, because it'll do anything.
Yeah.
It'll do whatever you want it to do.
Well, thank you, Mike, for all the time that you've been graciously given us today. Is there anything you're working on today that you'd like to plug or have people reach out to you for that we could offer up at this point?
Um, if anybody would like to get better at telling a few basic stories about what their customer does, what their product does, who their best customers are, I will be happy to send them the storyboard I use in teaching all the people I've taught on story how to build their stories. I'll be happy to share that storyboard if they will send me an email. I don't like text and messenger. Send me an email saying, I'd love to see your storyboard, and I'll pop it out to you.
Fantastic. So after this, just for all the participants to know, we're going to send you an email that wraps up. It's going to be a link to the video. I'm going to include Mike's contact details so you can write him, and I hope you take him up on that. Thank you, Mike, for your time. This has been awesome. Thank you to the Insightful team for putting this on and allowing me to meet Mike and enjoy this conversation. So thank you, everybody, for spending the time with us, and look forward to seeing you at the next event. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.